Would they hang around for footage of Lili and Archie at Althorp? At Diana's gravesite, photographs? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would be gold for Harry, for Meghan. Well, let's be honest, for Meghan. Harry would be stupid enough to believe that his wife just wants the children to connect with their grandmother. Harry, they might feel the spirit of your mother like I did.
For years, Princess Diana's grave has been one of the most private and protected places connected to the royal family. But now, a strange coincidence is raising eyebrows. Just as Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Archie and Lilibet are reportedly expected to visit Britain, Althorp, the estate where Diana is buried, is set to close its doors to the public for 2 days. And that's where the speculation begins. Because critics are now asking whether this is simply a private family visit or something much bigger.
And there's all of these clues about the fact that Diana is constantly on the mind of Meghan as well, with Stephanie Sidley pointing out that her latest as ever video shows Meghan wearing a new ring that resembles Princess Diana's and Princess Catherine's engagement ring.
Some believe Harry wants his offspring to finally see the resting place of the grandmother they never met. Others are asking a far more controversial question. Could Harry and Meghan be preparing their biggest Diana moment yet? Because the timing, the secrecy, and the sudden involvement of Archie and Lilibet have left many royal watchers wondering whether there is far more to this story than we've been told. And if that's true, the fallout could be enormous. Let's get into it.
But next month's visit has raised a lot of suspicion about what Harry and Meghan are intending to do at Althorp, the resting place of Diana, which has been closed, a scheduled closure, unusual at this time of year, for 2 days when Harry and Meghan are here with their children.
The story began with what looked like a routine announcement. Prince Harry is expected to return to Britain next month, and reports suggest Meghan Markle, Archie and Lilibet could be making the trip as well. On its own, that probably wouldn't have generated much attention. But then royal watchers noticed something unusual. Althorp, the historic Spencer estate where Princess Diana grew up and where she is buried, is scheduled to close to visitors for 2 days during the same period Harry and his family are expected to be in the UK. That immediately sparked questions, because according to reports discussed in the podcast, Althorp is not a place that typically shuts down unexpectedly during its visitor season. Once the estate opens to the public, closures are relatively rare, which is why the timing caught people's attention.
Something is clearly going on in terms of the fact that they are secretly working on these plans for the 30th anniversary, and this could be the ideal opportunity over those 2 days, quite a lengthy period of time, to film something, to create some type of imagery, to take some photos for whatever becomes the 30th anniversary project next year.
Of course, a closure doesn't automatically mean Harry and Meghan are involved. But when royal commentators started connecting the dates, speculation spread quickly. And the biggest question was obvious. Why now? For years, Harry has spoken publicly about his mother, her legacy, and the impact her death had on his life. In his memoir, Spare, he even described taking Meghan to Diana's grave and reflecting on what that place meant to him. That's why many royal watchers immediately wondered whether this trip could involve something deeply personal. Could Harry be planning to bring Archie and Lilibet to Diana's resting place for the first time? It's a theory that would certainly make sense.
Netflix are hanging on to them. They're throwing them little tidbits and bones. I don't think Netflix are hanging around for Carly Fortune's book. I don't think Netflix are hanging around because they might buy some sort of war film that Harry and Meghan are producing. Would they hang around for footage of Lili and Archie at Althorp? At Diana's gravesite, photographs? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Neither of little ones ever had the chance to know their grandmother. And Harry has repeatedly emphasized the importance of keeping Diana's memory alive for his family. But that's where the story takes a more controversial turn, because not everyone believes this would simply be a private family moment. Critics argue that whenever Harry and Meghan are involved, there is always another question lurking in the background. Will the public eventually hear about it? Will photographs emerge? Will details find their way into a future interview, documentary, memoir, or media project? And that's exactly why the Althorp closure has generated so much discussion.
They are up to something, and it's never anything good. I don't trust them. They're a couple of snakes.
No.
What could have been viewed as a private family visit is now being examined from every angle. Every date, every announcement, and every detail is being picked apart by royal commentators trying to figure out what is really happening behind the scenes. And then another detail emerged that made the story even more interesting. Because at first, most reports focused on Harry's return to Britain. But later, attention shifted to two people who weren't originally at the center of the conversation at all: Archie and Lilibet. One of the reasons this story has gained so much attention is because Archie and Lilibet were not initially the focus. When reports first emerged about Harry's expected return to Britain, most of the discussion centered around him. But as more details started to surface, attention quickly shifted to the offspring. According to reports discussed in the podcast, Archie and Lilibet are now also expected to be part of the trip. And that's where many royal watchers believe the story becomes far more interesting. Because if this were simply another visit to Britain, why has so much attention suddenly shifted to the little ones?
Harry and Meghan were bringing the kids for footage for the secret Diana documentary. The children at her gravesite at Althorp would be gold for Netflix, but they knew if they brought the children over to do that and didn't take them to see the king, it would make them look bad. So they sprung it on the palace.
Critics immediately began connecting the dots. At almost the exact same time that reports about Archie and Lilibet's involvement started circulating, questions were already being raised about Althorp's temporary closure. For many observers, the timing felt impossible to ignore. The theory that quickly emerged was straightforward. If Harry is planning a visit to Princess Diana's grave, bringing Archie and Lilibet would make that moment significantly more meaningful. It would be the first known opportunity for Diana's grandchildren from Harry's side of the family to visit one of the most important places connected to her life and legacy. And that possibility immediately grabbed headlines. After all, Harry has spent years speaking about the role Diana continues to play in his life. He has repeatedly described how much her memory influences his decisions, his outlook, and even the way he raises his offspring. Diana remains one of the most important figures in Harry's public story. But for critics, another question quickly followed.
So it makes me think, okay, well, they've got to have been really desperate to bring the children over.
If such a visit happens, will it remain private? That question matters because Harry and Meghan's critics argue that some of the couple's most powerful public moments have involved deeply personal family stories. Whether through interviews, documentaries, or memoirs, private experiences have often become public narratives later on. That's why some commentators are openly wondering whether a visit involving Archie, Lilibet, and Diana's grave could eventually become part of a larger story. And the speculation doesn't stop there, because this trip could have implications beyond Diana. Some royal commentators have pointed out that if Archie and Lilibet travel to Britain, attention will immediately turn to King Charles.
Hence why Harry has suddenly had a change of heart, even though his security demands have not been met. They know there's a good chance the king can't drop his diary at a few weeks' notice. It's a win for them if he doesn't meet them, as they can't peddle the victim narrative, but if the king does, both they and the children increase their royal relevancy.
If the children spend time with their grandfather, supporters of the Sussexes could point to it as evidence that family relations are improving. But if no meeting takes place, critics could easily portray it as yet another sign that tensions within the royal family remain unresolved. In other words, almost every possible outcome creates a headline. A meeting generates a reconciliation story. No meeting generates a conflict story. And that's one reason why this visit is attracting so much interest before it has even happened. Because the more details emerge, the less this looks like a routine family trip, and the more it starts to feel like an event with potentially major consequences for Harry, Meghan, and their relationship with the royal family. And as royal watchers continued examining the clues, many found themselves returning to the same question. Why does the story always seem to lead back to Diana?
Now, when Annie Granny said there is no way on God's green earth Charles Spencer will allow any filming at his sister's grave, they keep it covered year-round because of drones trying to get a pic, not a single chance, and if they sneaked it, he would go absolutely ballistic. According to Taz replied, "The Queen didn't think they'd film inside palace grounds, but they did. Even her childhood tea house."
The more commentators discussed this story, the more they kept coming back to one person, Princess Diana. Because while Harry and Meghan have built an entirely new life in California, Diana's legacy continues to appear again and again throughout their public story. And that's exactly why the Althorp speculation has attracted so much attention. This isn't just any location. This is the place where Diana grew up. It's where she spent much of her childhood. And most importantly, it's where she was laid to rest following her death in 1997. For Harry, few places carry more emotional significance than Althorp. That's what makes the current speculation so powerful. If Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet do visit Althorp together, it wouldn't simply be another family outing. It would instantly become one of the most symbolic Sussex family moments in years. And critics believe Harry knows that. In fact, this wouldn't be the first time Diana's memory has played a major role in the Sussex narrative.
I personally do not trust Harry and Meghan, and when they have put out statements saying, of course we're not working on a Diana documentary, I personally do not believe them. They are both very obsessed with Diana. Harry has taken ownership over Diana's memory. Meghan likes to dress like Diana. It's not once or twice, it's been continuously. It's not just from a few years ago. Her latest thing to do with a PR company, they made me dress like Diana. Everybody said she was going to say that at some point, and there you go. No one in their right mind would have made her dress like the late Princess Diana.
Harry has spoken about her countless times in interviews. He devoted significant portions of spare to her memory. He has repeatedly described how her death shaped his life and how he feels her presence even today. Meghan has also become closely connected to that story. Royal commentators often point out that comparisons between Meghan and Diana have followed the Duchess of Sussex for years. Sometimes those comparisons have come from supporters. Other times, they've come from Harry himself. Either way, Diana remains a constant reference point whenever discussions about the Sussexes arise. And that's why some critics are deeply skeptical about the timing of this potential visit. They argue that Diana's legacy has become one of the most powerful parts of Harry and Meghan's public brand. Whenever Diana enters the conversation, public interest immediately increases. Headlines grow bigger, attention grows stronger. The emotional connection becomes far more powerful. That's one reason some commentators believe there may be more behind this trip than a simple family visit. A visit involving Harry, Meghan, Archie, Lilibet, and Diana's grave would have enormous value from a storytelling perspective.
Well, we knew there was going to be a stunt for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's latest visit to the United Kingdom, and given the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's death is coming up next year, and we do believe that Harry is working on some type of major project to infuriate and devastate his brother around that anniversary, that the stunt was probably going to involve his mother in some way.
Just imagine the images. Harry introducing his offspring to the memory of their grandmother. The next generation of Diana's family standing at one of the most important places connected to her life. It's exactly the kind of emotional royal story that attracts worldwide attention. And that's where the speculation becomes even more controversial. Because some royal watchers are openly asking whether this visit could eventually become part of a future media project. Whether it's a documentary, a special feature, a memoir update, or some other project, critics believe the emotional power of a Diana-related story is simply too valuable to ignore. To be clear, there is no evidence that Harry and Meghan are planning to film anything at Althorp or use such a visit in a future project. But the fact that these questions are being asked at all shows how much skepticism now surrounds almost everything the Sussexes do. And as the theories continued spreading, some commentators began asking an even bigger question. What if this trip was never just about visiting Diana's grave in the first place?
Be careful, Kate, you don't realize it, but your inner circle may have inadvertently stabbed you in the back. Total U-turn this week, which was good, but totally bizarre, because she now seems to understand that actually Harry and Meghan are the problem.
What makes this story so fascinating is that the speculation is no longer just about a possible visit to Diana's grave. It's about what comes next. Because according to commentators discussing the story, the real question isn't whether Harry and Meghan would visit Althorp. The real question is what such a visit could be used for in the future. And that's where some of the strongest criticism is coming from. For years, Harry and Meghan have shared highly personal moments with the public. From the Oprah interview to the Netflix series to Harry's memoir Spare, private family experiences have repeatedly become part of public projects. That's why some critics are finding it difficult to believe that a potentially historic visit involving Archie, Lilibet, and Diana's grave would remain completely private forever. In the eyes of those critics, the emotional value of such a moment would simply be too enormous. After all, what could be more powerful than Harry introducing his offspring to the memory of Princess Diana?
Harry would be stupid enough to believe that his wife just wants the children to connect with their grandmother. Harry, they might feel the spirit of your mother like I did, and he'd just follow along with it because it's Harry. But yeah, I think this is more to do with what this trip is about than what it was, a reconciliation with the king, because Harry would have planned this a long time ago. And this has all just sprung up out of nowhere in the space of a couple of weeks. And it's absolute chaos.
It's a story that writes its own headlines. And that's exactly why some royal commentators are convinced there may be a bigger strategy behind this trip. Not because they have evidence of a documentary or filming plans, but because they believe Diana remains the Sussexes' most powerful connection to the royal story. Think about it. Harry and Meghan no longer carry out royal duties. They no longer represent the monarchy. They no longer appear regularly alongside senior royals. Yet Diana remains a figure that instantly connects them to one of the most famous royal stories of all time.
But the reason why I also think this whole trip, there's something more to it, because Harry has not had the decision from Ravik, and Harry knows to get the security that he needs for each visit, it's a case-by-case assessment by Ravik and the police when he gives them 28 or 30 days notice when he comes to the UK. He has sprung this. The children coming, we knew Harry was coming, but he has sprung it a couple of weeks before they come over, not giving the Met Police the full 30 days.
And some critics argue that connection has become more important than ever. That's why the Althorp closure has generated so much attention. If this was any other location, very few people would care. But because it's Diana, every detail is being examined. Every date is being discussed. Every coincidence is becoming a headline. And according to some commentators, that's precisely the point. The more attention Diana's name generates, the more valuable any Diana-related story becomes. Of course, supporters of Harry and Meghan see things very differently. They argue that Harry has every right to visit his mother's grave. They argue that Archie and Lilibet deserve to learn about their grandmother. And they believe critics are reading far too much into what could simply be a private family moment. But even supporters acknowledge one thing.
I personally believe that he didn't initially tell them that the children were coming because they weren't coming. And I just think the way this is all played out, it's just been one big explosion. And you think that Harry and Meghan would be watertight if they know that they were going to come and bring the children to the UK. They would have made sure that Ravik and the police had more than enough time, maybe even longer than a month. So they didn't just spring this on the king and the palace. They've also sprung this on the Met Police and Ravik.
The timing has raised questions because the combination of Harry's UK trip, Meghan's reported involvement, the little one's expected presence, and Althorp's temporary closure has created a perfect storm of speculation. And the more people talk about it, the bigger the story becomes. What started as a simple report about a visit to Britain has now evolved into a debate about Diana's legacy, media value, royal relevance, and the future of the Sussex brand. And as the theories continue to spread, some commentators believe this controversy reveals something much bigger than a possible visit to Althorp. They believe it reveals just how divided public opinion has become whenever Harry and Meghan are involved. In many ways, that may be the most revealing part of this entire story. Not the Althorp closure, not the speculation about Archie and Lilibet, not even the theories surrounding a possible Diana visit. It's the reaction. Because just a few years ago, a story like this would probably have been viewed very differently.
But the timing for me is just a little bit too suspect, just because of years of covering Harry and Meghan, all of the games, all of the lies, everything that we've seen since Megxit. They plot, they plan, and this to me just seems like something out of Meghan and Harry's playbook, hence why they suddenly turned around and said, do you know what, the kids are coming.
Many people would have seen Harry bringing his children to Diana's grave as a touching family moment, a son honoring his mother's memory, a father helping his offspring understand where they come from. But today, the reaction is far more complicated. Instead of immediately accepting that explanation, large numbers of royal watchers are asking questions first. Why now? Why was Althorp closed? Why are Archie and Lilibet suddenly such an important part of the story? And why does it feel like every major Sussex headline eventually circles back to Diana? Those questions show just how much public trust has changed over the past few years. Whether it's fair or unfair, Harry and Meghan now face a level of scrutiny that follows almost everything they do. Every trip, every interview, every announcement, and every public appearance is analyzed in a way that few other public figures experience. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because at the moment, nobody outside the people directly involved actually knows what is planned. There may be a visit, there may not be. There may be nothing more than a private family moment. Or there may be a much bigger story still waiting to emerge. The reality is that nobody knows. What we do know is that the speculation has already taken on a life of its own.
I mean, this whole thing has just got chaos written all over it. And I think that they would do something like that.
What the F?
The discussion has spread far beyond Althorp itself. It has become a debate about Harry and Meghan's relationship with Diana's legacy. their relationship with the royal family, and the role that royal connections continue to play in their public image. And perhaps that's why this story has attracted so much attention, because it sits at the intersection of all the biggest Sussex controversies: Diana, the children, royal reconciliation, media projects, public trust. It's all there in a single story. And until Harry and Meghan's UK plans become clearer, the questions are unlikely to stop. In fact, if the visit does happen, the scrutiny may only intensify, because every photograph, every sighting, and every reported meeting will be examined for clues about what this trip was really about. Was it simply a family pilgrimage to honor Diana? Was it part of a broader effort to reconnect with Britain and the royal family? Or was there another purpose behind it altogether? For now, royal watchers are left waiting. But one thing is already certain. What began as a routine report about a visit to Britain has turned into one of the most talked about Sussex stories of the summer, and the biggest questions may still be ahead. So where does this leave Harry and Meghan? Right now, all we have are questions. We know Harry is expected to return to Britain. We know reports suggest Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet could be joining him. And we know Althorp, the estate where Princess Diana is buried, is scheduled to close to the public during the same period. Those facts alone have been enough to trigger a wave of speculation. What nobody knows yet is what happens next. If the family does visit Diana's grave, many people will see it as a deeply personal moment. After all, Harry has spent years talking about his mother's memory and the impact she continues to have on his life. Introducing Archie and Lilibet to that part of their family history would be completely understandable. But critics see things very differently. They believe the timing is simply too convenient. They point to years of interviews, documentaries, books, and public disclosures, and argue that Harry and Meghan have repeatedly turned private family matters into public stories. That's why so many people are skeptical whenever a potentially powerful emotional moment appears on the horizon. And that's what makes this story so intriguing. It's not really about Althorp. It's not really about a two-day closure. It's about trust. Because if this trip turns out to be exactly what supporters believe, a private family visit honoring Diana's memory, then many of the theories surrounding it will disappear overnight. But if details emerge later, if the visit becomes part of a future project, or if new information surfaces, critics will undoubtedly argue that their suspicions were justified all along. Either way, Harry and Meghan are once again at the center of a royal storm before the trip has even begun. And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway from this entire story. Everything involving Diana still captures global attention. Everything involving Harry and Meghan still sparks fierce debate. And when those two things collide, headlines are almost guaranteed. But what do you think? Is this simply a family visit being blown out of proportion? Or are royal watchers right to question what's really happening behind the scenes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to Crown Clash, and turn on notifications for more royal news and updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.